Welcome tonight to the city of Connellsville. We're going to talk about a potential grant application through the United States Department of Transportation. It's called a RAISE grant. To give you a little bit of background, my name is Scott Dunn. I'm one of your Fayette County commissioners. To give you some background, a few years ago, a gentleman approached me and said, "Who owns a railroad bridge?" And they had just completed the West Yock Bridge, the redecking of that. So we sought out many legal answers from attorneys, title companies, and other legal entities. At the end, with the help of Vern Oler, the city clerk, we found that the Wheeling Lake Erie Railroad claims to currently hold a long-term lease on the bridge. Further, the Fayette County Assessment Department records show that the railroad also owns a deeded property on the north end of the bridge. So a plan was kind of hatched, and we wanted to see how we could use the railroad bridge at Martin's as not only a crossing, but also as a tourist destination. And that plan has evolved with the help of Faye Penn, and you'll hear from that as we move along. So this railroad bridge spans two municipalities. It's in the city of Connellsville and also in Connellsville Township. So there are some people here I wanted to recognize for their attendance being here. First, I want to thank my co-workers, Fayette County Commissioners Dave Lohr is here, as well as Vince Facides. Fayette County, other people from the county are also here. I saw District Attorney Rich Bowers was here, and I don't know if he still is. There he is. Thank you, Rich. And our Recorder of Deeds, John Marietta, is also in attendance. We have a lot of other people in the room, and I want to take a moment to recognize them. From the office of our Congressman Guy Reschenthaler, we have Sean Conway. Thanks, Sean. From United States Senator Bob Casey's office, we have Robbie Matisak. From Representative Warner's office, Thursa Kraus is in attendance. And then we also have from the Fayette Chamber, Muriel Nuttall. From the Greater Connellsville Chamber, Max House is here. From Go Lower Highlands, the Visitors Bureau, Ann Nemenek. From the DCNR, the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, Adam Mattis is in the house. From the Regional Trail Corporation, their Executive Director, Tom Petrus. From the Yock River Trail, Ted Koval, among others, is in the house. From PennDOT, we have Rachel Duda and Angela Saunders. And from the General Braddock's Fish Club, even, we have Ron Haggerty. And in addition to that, we have Connellsville Township Supervisor Todd Miner and Connellsville Mayor Greg Lincoln, and you're going to hear from them in a minute. This is an exciting project, and again, what we're proposing tonight is a planning grant. Everything that you see up here is conceptual. You will be included, should we get this grant, in the planning process. We will have more meetings like this where you will be included in that process. So this is tonight basically a first step, and we want to hear from our elected officials and as well as Faye Penn and Kimberly Horn to give you a presentation. So with that, I want to turn it over to Connellsville Mayor Greg Lincoln.
Thank you. First of all, I'm just so excited to see this many people to attend this meeting. This is a really big deal, and I thank Faye Penn and Commissioner Dunn and everybody for helping organize this. Our city clerk. This project is going to be an amazing, impactful thing for not only Connellsville and Connellsville Township, but Fayette County. And all of us were going to benefit from this if this grant goes through. And the cool thing about this trestle is that most people that come to visit in Connellsville, or you go down and take wedding photos or graduation photos, that trestle is in the background of your pictures because it's such a picturesque spot in our Yawk River Park. And now, if we get this project completed, you'll be able to go up on that trestle and take pictures out. I think that's going to be amazing. The amount of visitors that we will be able to attract because of this project, our residents that live here in Fayette County and the city will be able to enjoy this the same. I'm just so excited that this is actually happening, and I'm going to give Vern, our city clerk, a shout out because, this was going to be the Vern Oler trestle. That was when he retired. That was one thing we were going to name in this city was that trestle because he's been working with the county, the RTC, and trying to get this trestle into a tourist attraction, and we're there. And I just want to thank Vern. He works very hard for the city, and he does a good job. And the great thing is we have most of our city council here. We have Councilwoman Carol Tiberio is here, Councilman Bob Topper's here, Councilman Ethan Keedy is here, and I don't know if Tom is here. I have not seen Tom Karpiak. We'll fill him in at our next meeting, but this is important. Our city council is supportive of this project. February we will vote to support this project so we can submit this grant, and I just want you all to know this is going to be a very big deal. Phase 2, after we complete all this and do that, phase 2 is to get the Westmoreland County section of the trail, the Cole and Coke and Scottdale to come connect to this, and then we will be the Breezewood of the trail system in Connellsville. And I'm going to tell you, if it wasn't for this trail, we wouldn't have the things that we have now in the city. For you all that are waiting for this, hopefully this grant goes through and the sheepskin trail gets completed from Dunbar to Uniontown, I'm just going to tell you, start preparing because you are never going to believe what impact these bikers do for your town. They have literally kept our businesses open, our grocery stores, everything. They love to explore and they love to spend money. And this trestle right here is going to get them another place to explore. Coming to Connellsville Township. I know Todd and the commissioners in Connellsville Township are excited, and he'll be speaking here in a minute. But I want to welcome you all. This is a great first step into getting this amazing new project completed for our city and our county. So thank you.
Thanks, Greg. One thing before we go too much further is these grants, the grant that we're applying for, hopefully next month, and the grant then to actually build and construct whatever we plan. Both of those grants have a 0% match that will be no money from the city, no money from the county, 0%. It will be fully funded by the United States Department of Transportation. So that's a great thing. You don't get these opportunities coming along very often. So again, the span of the bridge goes into Connellsville Township as well. So I wanted to invite their supervisor, Todd Miner, to say a word.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be here tonight. What a wonderful attendance we're having. This is just such a great opportunity for the community, southwestern Pennsylvania, the county, Connellsville and Connellsville Township. I just can't say enough about it. Speaking with the commissioner and the commissioners about this, with the mayor, I mean, it's just such a wonderful opportunity. Cannot wait for this to happen. It is going to happen. It's going to be just a wonderful impact to our area. We don't have a whole lot in Connellsville Township yet for tourism and everything, but this is going to open a door for it. It's going to bring the things into it. It's going to get us bridging the gap into Westmoreland County. It's going to help the bikers get there. It's going to help get things moving. It's going to get Airbnbs going. It's going to help us just get things moving, grow our community, just help us out. It's just so exciting. I mean, these drawings are just so beautiful. It's just wonderful. I just can't say enough about it. Thank you, everyone, for being here. It was an honor to just be a small part of this, and just can't say enough. Thank you again.
Thank you, Todd. Bridging the gap. I caught that. That was a nice little pun, right? So, as we were working on this project and kind of toiling around with it, we found two partners to help us out. And the first one was Laura Coons, the new executive director of Faye Penn. She comes from not only a background in historical properties and nonprofits, but also has the contacts in the federal government that are going to help us out and are going to help us get this grant, right, Laura? All right. So I want to ask Laura Coons, come say a word.
Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner. My maiden name's Kurtz, and even though I am a West Virginian, my great-grandfather was from Connellsville, and I still don't know if they owned the jewelry store, but I do know he was a millwright. Don't know why he went to West Virginia, so forgive us that. Here I am. I actually thought I had come to the wrong place and we were having bingo tonight. Such a big crowd, right? Faye Penn, I'm pleased. I want to just give a shout out to my great team here because we can't, any of us, do things by ourselves. We're so pleased to partner with the city, the township, the county. And my team is here. Raise your hands, Faye Penners. Jim Gray, our economic development director over here. All you business people, talk to Lori about services back there. Misty, workforce. So thanks for being here. We are traditionally known for industrial development and business parks and manufacturing, which you have a lot of in Fayette County. Our nonprofit mission includes improving the quality of life. So in addition to developing business sites, we're working on housing, community development, and tourism. And by the way, I brought your new Laurel Highlands guide, Go Laurel Highlands, Ann, is, like always, fantastic. I give that out. We give it to prospects. We have so much going in this county. So several months ago, with the county's support, we decided to pursue a multi-state tourism initiative. So we met with the commissioners about that. And this is a different funding opportunity. It's through the Appalachian Regional Commission and a new program they have that requires multiple states. So again, we want to go after our fair share of federal money. So we're really pleased to have the congressional staff here tonight. Thank you, Robbie, and thank you, Sean, for being here. In Fayette County, we're calling this ARISE project through ARC the PATH. And that stands for the Partnership for Appalachian Trails and Heritage, featuring outdoor recreation, cultural heritage, and destination tourism. We have focused on Connellsville as a hub. Due to your location here with the Great Allegheny Passage, the Sheepskin Trail, the Youghiogheny River, and the train station, some have called Connellsville the epicenter of Bike Trail Universe, Mayor, and I think you know that better than anyone. You have great trail groups. We look forward to getting with them. So late last summer, I was visiting a mutual friend and a mentor. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry? Okay. Okay. We are the epicenter in Connellsville of Bike Trail Universe. You got that? Okay. I'll talk louder. Thank you. My husband says I talk too loud, so I'll talk loud. He's not here. Late last summer, while visiting a mutual friend and mentor in Indianapolis, he was a longtime preservation architect and national award-winning preservation architect that I worked with many years. I ran into another longtime colleague and friend and one of the best landscape architects I've worked with, Ken Riemenschneider with Kimley Horn, who has achieved award-winning work with blueways, greenways, and other tourism projects. I invited Ken to visit Fayette County and all we have to offer here. So last fall, he arrived, and he rode the train from Connellsville to Cumberland, and then he biked back. Isn't that the point, Mayor? Right? So Cumberland is another partner, incidentally, in our multi-state ARC initiative. So Ken will share more about that experience with you. But during our planning process with the PATH project, we had the opportunity to work with the mayor. At the suggestion of the commissioner and Mark, we met with the mayor and Vern, and we talked about the bridge. So now here we are working on a major federal funding opportunity through the U.S. Department of Transportation, which, by the way, this RAISE program has $750 million for rural areas. And I can tell you, they don't often receive applications that will be of this caliber from rural areas. So for that, I want to thank all the partners on that. That deserves a round. Faye Penn, we are a nonprofit. We are collaborating, as we've said, with local and county officials to plan this project and to submit an application in support of that, which is why we are here tonight. So with that, thank you for your support, and allow me to introduce Ken Riemenschneider of Kimley-Horn.
Thank you, Laura. Can everyone hear me back there? Okay, good. It's actually a distinct honor to be here today. And the first thing I want to do, and I'm from Indianapolis, my colleague Bill Moldovan over here on the side is from our Pittsburgh office. And we also have a Philadelphia office in Pennsylvania. But I'm incredibly honored to be here tonight. And one of the reasons that is true is because I do public meetings all the time. We seek public input on the work we do, and it's a very important part of the process to find out what you want in your community. And so this planning grant will allow us to have more meetings like this. We will be setting up a website, and at the end of this presentation, you will see an email that you can send a note to if you want to get an email when the website goes live, and you'll be able to take surveys on there and tell us what you think and what you want for your community. And I hope, like hell, can you say that? I hope, like hell, we continue to have this amount of public participation. I have never, in all my years doing public engagement, seen this many people at an open house. So kudos to all of you for showing up. Okay, so I had to figure out how to use this thing. All right, well, let's get into the weeds and talk about what we're doing here. Very, very excited to be at this stage in the process and to see the amount of excitement that exists in your community about the potential of this project. And I also want to give kudos to Vern Uller for the time he has spent arguing for keeping the bridge and finding a higher and better use for it. And I think we're well on our way there. And this planning grant is going to allow us to really, determine exactly what that should be and how it can be executed. So let's talk a little bit about the RAISE grant. So RAISE is an acronym. So RAISE stands for Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. So the metrics upon which this grant is decided is going to be based on metrics that support the RAISE acronym. We have a team at Kimley-Horn, so we're a company. We have 7,000 professionals and around 100 offices around the country. We have a team at our home office in Raleigh that is entirely focused on doing USDOT, or U.S. Department of Transportation, RAISE grants. We understand the program. We're very successful in getting those grants. You don't always get them. Sometimes it takes 2 tries. But we're very, very good at delivering on these grant programs. And this project scores very high on the metrics that they evaluate the grant program with. So we're very enthusiastic about where this will go. The grant is due on the 28th of February, and we will have a decision in June. So you will be hearing about our success in that pursuit in June. Construction grant applications are due the end of February 2024. And that construction funding can go up to an amount of $25 million. And we're going to do our darndest in the planning grant to justify $25 million for Connellsville. So why am I so excited about this? And I know there are people in the room that truly understand why we should be excited about this potential. But I'm working on a 235-mile long trail system in west central Indiana. And in the course of doing that, we've just completed the corridor master plan. And in the course of doing that, the Great Allegheny Passage was identified as a benchmarking trail against which we could, project what could happen if we built the Wabash River Greenway. And so when Lauren invited me down in October of last year to see if I might have any ideas and what might happen here, I decided to come a couple days early and ride the Great Allegheny Passage. I am so sorry I haven't done that like 10 years ago. That is a gorgeous corridor, and I'm planning to come back with my biking buddies. I currently have 12 signed up when the rhododendrons are in bloom. And I'm told that the native rhododendrons along the gap bloom like the end of June or early July, a lot later than the non-native rhododendrons. So I'm glad to know that. Thank you for that advice. So back to why we get excited about this. If you look at the economic impact report, and we have this up here in case anybody wants to take a look at it, and any of your trails organizations, if you don't have this on your computer, we can send you the link to it so that you can have it as a reference. But it determined that $120 million total economic impact within the Gap corridor on an annual basis. That's a November 2021 study. Annually, over 1 million tourists from all 50 states and 35 countries use the trail. And the Gap supports jobs having an average annual living wage of $38,000 to $40,000. So the economic impact is real. And if you compare within this part of Pennsylvania, this region, if you compare the economic activity within the corridor to other rural areas of Pennsylvania, the towns along the corridor are doing better economically. And it's because of the tourism dollars that are being spent in their communities. So anything you can do in Connellsville to get people to get off their bike and spend time in Connellsville is going to be good for your local economy. And anybody who studies economics knows that when somebody comes from out of town and they stay 1 or 2 nights and they eat out every meal and they go out and do entertainment and what have you, that money they spend recirculates in your local economy a number of times before it actually circulates out. So it has a multiplier effect on your local economy. So that's really important. And then when you think about the potential of the Sheepskin Trail, going down to Dunbar and Uniontown, and all the way down to Parkersburg and back, and you think about the Great Allegheny Passage and the traffic on that, and the traffic you're going to have the Sheepskin Trail, you build this feature, which will be nationally recognized. You build this feature, it's going to be the chatter of the bicycle world for quite some time, and you're going to see a big boost in economic activity. So we're really excited about the economic potential. And I want to take just a minute to talk about some of the side benefits that we see in a project like this. So why do we propose making these kinds of improvements? Well, number one, there is the equity component, and we are looking at that in doing this layout. I know that if you look at it closely, you might have some ideas about how to change it and improve it, and that's what the planning effort is going to allow us to do. It's a conceptual plan at this point, but we are, oh good, my cursor shows up there. We are looking at how we can, in Connellsville Township, tie people back down into downtown Connellsville, and how we can tie these neighborhoods immediately east of downtown Connellsville back into downtown Connellsville. And then we are looking at how can we create a loop that connects to the Great Allegheny Passage 2 times on 3rd Street, and then also connect to the Great Allegheny Passage where it connects to Iron Horse Bridge Park. The reason we want to do that is we want to find every way possible to invite people off of the trail and into your community to discover what you have to offer here. And some of the improvements that we will be recommending to make that actually have a large and noticeable economic impact is looking at street improvements on Meeson, 7th Street, and Crawford Avenue, and Pittsburgh to create safer travel corridors within the right-of-way that we have, but also, particularly on 7th and Meeson, to approach the design of those streets in what is called a complete streets fashion. And what that means is we look at all modes of transportation. So people in cars, people on bikes in dedicated bike lanes, and people walking. And with landscapes that create a pedestrian favorable environment. We have one of the things that motivated me to become a landscape architect early on in my career was that we have had decades and decades and decades, and I apologize in advance to any transportation engineers in the room, decades of designing our cities and towns to move traffic faster. Wider lanes, smaller sidewalks, less street trees. Every time we did that, we took a bit of the wonderful downtown environments we used to have away. And complete streets brings that back. And when we do those environments correctly, it is amazing the amount of private investment you will get in the buildings that exist along these corridors, but also the infill development you will get on the vacant lots that exist in these areas. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about Franklin, Indiana. We completed their downtown vision plan, which had 6 miles of trails and what we call living streetscapes around Courthouse Square. So they have a beautiful courthouse in the middle and historic buildings around the perimeter. They had about 50% of their storefronts were vacant. Most of the other ones were underutilized. And they were collecting between $4 and $5 a square foot for leases on the buildings that had leases. We made those improvements in their downtown, and you can see in this middle photo how we have created a pedestrian environment that provides shade in the heat of summer. We have the merchants putting blade signs on their buildings with graphics to add to the local color and the character of the environment to make it easier for you to pick out which merchant you want to drop into. They currently are collecting between $15 and $16 a square foot in those buildings, and they have no vacant spaces. And the city of Franklin has a lot more fun in downtown Franklin. And so they have a very, very active Main Street program, and the programming of what would happen on Iron Horse Bridge Park is going to be an important part of the success of this project. But I do want to emphasize that a key part of that success are the trails. And here you can see a creek crossing in Franklin. You can see our little, we call them greenway roundabouts, where you can ride your bike around them. You can also see that we say how many miles you are from Courthouse Square. So people can track their exercise and how much distance they go. And they also are being sent a subliminal message that Courthouse Square is the place to be in Franklin, Indiana, right? Well, I think in Connellsville, on these markers, we should tell people how far they are from Iron Horse Bridge Park. What do you think? Yeah. The other thing that we do on these streetscapes to make these environments cooler in the heat of summer is that these tree planters are stormwater management facilities. So all of the water coming off the sidewalks, and if you could see, I know it's too small for you to see, but there's downspouts coming down the fronts of the buildings, and that water comes across. All of these tree planters are being watered mechanically just by sloping the sidewalk into them. So we don't have to have any irrigation that we need to maintain, and the trees are thriving. So we see this kind of potential on Meeson Street with the Complete Streets program. Excuse me. So let's talk a little bit about how this will work. So here's your bridge. The bow truss section starts where the masonry pier is, here and here. And the bow truss section is centered on the bike lane that will go across the bridge And we are planning on having solar panels on top of the Bow Truss Bridge so that we don't have to buy any electricity to power any of what we're doing here. In fact, our solar team at Kimley Horn has determined that we will generate at least twice the electricity that will be required to power the lighting on the bridge and on the bridge park. So, again, going back to what does USDOT think about when they decide if they want to fund your project? Sustainability. Remember, raise the S, sustainability. So we have a project that requires no power from fossil fuel. All right, I want to describe a couple other things. So the Great Allegheny Passage is coming through here in Yaak River Park. And we have an accessible ramp coming up and going out onto the bridge. And then we're going to decide, and I have to admit to our client, I haven't given up on this yet, but we have to decide if this trail going in this direction is going to be an overlook at 119, where you have the built-up ground right at 119 where the railroad used to go across. Whether that's an overlook or whether we figure out a way to have that drop down into downtown Connellsville. But we'll figure that out eventually. And then I'm calling the decks that we have on both sides of the bridge, the north deck we're referring to as the shade deck. So we have a trellis system. And then these green spots here are large planters within which we will have trumpet vines that will grow up rather quickly and cover the north side of the bridge deck, providing a very nicely shaded environment, but also being incredibly attractive to hummingbirds. And then on the south side is what we're calling the sun deck, and that's where we have movable tables and chairs, where we have a commissioned piece of art that becomes part of the water cascade, and incredible views up and down the river. So here we are, someone's on a bicycle, headed right across the park. We are using a graphic representation of the rails that the trains used to ride on to visually designate the bike lane so that people that are on the shade deck or on the sunny deck moving across from one side to the other have a visual cue to look left or right to make certain there isn't a bicycle coming across the bridge, right? And then we have enough space on both sides for the walking lanes. So we've done that on other projects where we have walkers and bikers on the same facility, and that seems to work rather well. And then, we're looking at ways in which we can create an environment that is unique and different. And so we have a large wooden handrail at the very top. You can see these cast metal posts that support them. And then you can see that we have stainless steel cables that provide the rest of the railing. And we do that because that allows us to have an almost entirely unobstructed view down to the river without a railing in the way. And then here is the curvilinear bench I was talking about earlier that wraps around the large planters that support the trumpet vines. Here you can see the trumpet vines. Our illustrator even put in the trumpet vine flowers that attract the hummingbirds. And the wooden bench loops around, but it creates these niche spaces as it loops around where a family can gather or friends can gather and talk to each other without a row of benches in a straight line where they can't look at each other. So it creates those niche spaces, but it also then creates spaces where buskers can be playing music and providing that ambiance that we're looking for on the park. We also see that there would be food cart vendors on the bridge. So you could get your hot dog or your kielbasa and pierogies. Laura says pierogies. But you can also see, sitting in the shade, just beyond the bridge, you can see the water cascade on the sun deck. And then here is a nighttime view of the sun deck. And what we are proposing is this commissioned piece of sculpture would rise 22, 24 feet above the bridge deck and drop down We need to figure out how far down we can go. We don't want to go down below the high flood water. But we're thinking that this might want to be a user-activated water feature so that you have to actually hike out on the bridge to see it run. You hit the button and watch it run for 15 minutes. I think there'd be a lot of kids in Connellsville dragging their parents out to the middle of that bridge. But we also then have the movable tables and chairs that allow people. It's very important in a space like this, and this has been proven in densely urban populated areas and parks, that a space like this is much more appealing and used more when you have the opportunity to move a chair and create your own space that you sit in, depending upon how many people are in your group. And so we wanted to make certain that we had that opportunity on the sun deck side of the bridge. And then the other thing that we haven't decided yet is that we're really going to have lounge chairs for people who just want to sunbathe. But the catenary lights will add that evening ambiance. And then if you look closely, you can see these large planters that have trees in them. So we do plan to have trees on Bridge Park. And this is a time where we go to Q&A, where you can ask us questions, and Scott is going to be the one to field those questions.
Thank you, Ken. So we do have, thank you. I'm not the only one who's going to be answering the hard questions will be answered by Ken. So does anybody have any questions? And raise your hand and you can talk to Mr. Rafel.
Good evening. Thank you so much for coming. Is it too early to maybe ask where will the responsibility of maintenance fall in the community, or any liabilities?
Okay, so the plan here will be to create a nonprofit corporation similar to that of the Regional Trail Corporation, which owns the gap from Connellsville to Pittsburgh. What that will do is have a third party in charge of running and maintaining. They will also be able to, because they're nonprofit, to fundraise in ways that the county and the city can't. They will be able to apply for grants and things like that. So that's the way that's going to be. Liability-wise, the thought has always been that we would, if it's in a nonprofit corporation, we want to remove any liability from the city, the county, and the township. And that would be borne by this corporation. And as part of the legal process, there would be an indemnification of the railroad. There would be insurance policies and things like that in place.
I just have a question. I use the trail a lot. Barry Harvey uses the trail a lot. And one of the biggest questions I have is, and I don't know if your landscape architect understands the nature of what people do on the bridge. If you've been around here for all your life, people go down there, and we won't say that any of us have ever done this, but you climb to the top of the bridge and you jump down into the water. So when we were just talking about it back here, one of the questions is from a liability standpoint, but from a safety standpoint, and I'd say a lot of people from Connellsville or whoever floats down the river, you pull over, you climb out, you go up, and you jump off the river, the bridge down at West Yaw. Well, how are we going to make sure that that doesn't happen on this? Because that's very inviting for people to do something like that.
The mayor is going to answer that question.
I mean, it is a great question, but I wish maybe our officers can tell me how many people have jumped off that bridge now, because there's nobody stopping you from going up to the trestle now and jumping off. I mean, we had people that go up there. Unfortunately, they had to go remove them, but they weren't jumping off the bridge. I mean, we can ask questions, those types of questions all the time, but there's no way we can 100% stop that from happening. I feel that we, as a plan, if this grant goes through, we're going to have surveillance cameras on that bridge, 100%. I would even want to suggest some kind of a, like they do on college campuses, have like a blue light system in the middle of the bridge where somebody can push a button and it immediately alert our Connellsville police before even having to call on their phone a 911 call. They would immediately be alerted to the station and they would be dispatched to the bridge. You know, these are things that we will have to iron out once we know if we get this grant. That's why this is a conceptual. This is just a public meeting of what it can be. If we get this grant, we're going to have meetings and we will fine tune this to make it as safe and as for anyone visiting. The difference between this trestle, I feel, and the West Drawbridge is that this one is 100 feet higher than the West Drawbridge. And for you, I don't feel that somebody floating the river is going to stop and climb a bank 100 feet to climb up onto that bridge. I just think that it's not as fun as it would be to go down to West Draw like they do. I mean, I know that the Trail Council doesn't want anybody jumping off there, and most people do adhere to the signs of asking to respect the bridge and do all that. But, you know, we will deal with that, or we have a great police force here that will be enforcing this bridge, and we'll figure out how to get that monitoring once it happens. This is just like I said, there's many more discussions to be had on fine tuning everything about this project.
Thank you. Anybody else?
My question is, on the bridge, how wide is that bike trail? And basically, how many bikes side by side can it support before there's a danger issue?
24 feet. At the moment, 24 feet.
The bike trail is 24 feet? The actual bike?
The paved area is 24 feet. Bike lane is 12. 12.
Yes, sir.
Given the nature of crime in the county, I noticed that you mentioned there would be loose furniture. I guess this goes along with the DA's question, is what kind of deterrence would we have to prevent, unfortunately, drug use would be a real concern, and the furniture going missing.
So this is where Ken and I have a disagreement, and we've talked about this before. You know, I don't believe there will be loose furniture on the. Okay, so we may come up with a plan where it's movable somehow, or you can move a seat. But yeah, we disagree. Yeah.
So I will say this. So we had issues at our Yawk River Park with crime and people loitering and doing drugs in our park. We installed 17 surveillance cameras at the park that's there now, that's live 24/7. We have a dispatcher when they're working, most not on 24/7, but when they're on duty, we have screens on our police station that they monitor East Park, Yawk Park. Our dog park is as a part of that now. But I will say this, once we install those cameras and individuals know that when they enter our park, they're under surveillance, it has severely cut down on criminal activity in that park. And I don't know, we could probably figure out police calls or whatnot, but I know that our police are not dealing with that as they used to before we put cameras in that park. You know, we had to point before these cameras, our public works was every morning their job, the first thing in the morning was to go around our pavilions and our playgrounds and make sure there was no needles on the ground and all that. It was bad. But I'm telling you this, the cameras really changed the environment down there, and it just, when people see those cameras, they think twice and choose not to do it there. That's why I feel that this bridge will definitely need to have surveillance cameras that we can tie into our police station, where our police will have 24/7 viewing of what's going on, and it will provide a safety figure. And I am with you, Commissioner Dunn. I don't feel we need to have anything that can be removed and thrown into the river, because it will be thrown into the river. I mean, we have down at our East Park, these kids will pick up picnic tables that weigh 500 pounds, and carry it so they can throw it into the creek that runs through the park. I mean, it's just one of those things.
With cameras.
With cameras, yes, with cameras. They still do that.
Ken, you're getting shot down tonight.
But the removal, the concept of it all, though, we would definitely do our very best. One thing I'll tell everybody that is not from here, we rarely have any negative comments from bikers that come through this city. They feel welcome here. They feel safe. And that's one thing we work hard on every day in Connellsville is when our visitors come, they feel that they can go out and about. And I'm going to tell you, if you come through here on a weekend or you could see them, they leave the hotel or they leave the Airbnbs and they're walking over our bridge and they're going to our restaurants. They feel safe to be out and about. So that's one thing we work hard on in Connellsville. I mean, of course, we're never going to eliminate crime. It's everywhere, and we do our very best to stay on top of it. But I will say this, that we have a good reputation here in the city for making people feel welcome and safe.
Thank you. Good.
Okay, I'm not asking this in a negative manner whatsoever.
Okay.
It's just reality, and I just wanted to see what, if you get this grant, what your expected schedule is, because I work with these schedules and I know how long it takes. Like, when, if everything is a perfect, space and works out perfectly, when do you feel like this could happen?
Ken, you want to answer?
So generally, a project like this can be done in 6 to 9 months. The planning, that's not the design and engineering, but that does require a fair amount of cooperation between the city, the township, PennDOT, trails groups, everybody who has a stake in how this actually goes forward and how it's constructed and how it's maintained. And so, the answer is, depending upon how well we can keep the project moving, we can do it in 6 to 9 months. And that's our goal, to be able to make application next year for the construction funding.
Yeah, well, just one thing. When you talked about the special plantings and flowers and such, that's what scares me, because we have a lot of environmental features along our rivers that take a long time to clear. So we do have beautiful things, but the environmental part sometimes takes extremely long. So, but thank you.
Anybody else? Put your hand up.
In reference to the drug abuse and the criminal mischief, I've been working on this trail for 11 years, everybody here. We helped build that bridge down at the West Drawbridge, and we have very little trouble down there. Me and Dawn and Ted and Alex, I have never seen, and correct me if I'm wrong, any drug paraphernalia down there. From my many years of being as a police officer, we have never seen anything down there. I don't even think we've seen them in our anti-narcotic shelters, have we, Gary? No. None. I mean, saying about the drugs and that, and of course you do sometimes see some beer cans down there from the fishermen and stuff, so, and in reference to this, like this bridge coming up here, we thought about this for a while. Our trails, we maintained it very well, and we very seldom have any problems. So just if that helps out.
And if I can say, Mr. Irwin was the person who asked me who owns a railroad bridge, so he started all this, just so you know.
I started.
Okay. Sure, there's one more thing to discuss, and Ken, do you want to?
And while we're doing that, I just wanted to say, Max House, I meant to mention earlier, thank you, because you're our board member as well as a Connellsville resident. So thanks for being here, Max.
Thank you. I just wondered if the design goes through successfully, what is the timeline for the actual engineering and construction? Do you have an approximate timeline? Thank you.
It would likely be, and again, it depends on who gets the contract to do the work and their capacity to deliver. But if you have a contractor with capacity to deliver, you would, and I'm talking about, I want to be clear here. I'm talking about the bridge park component. The rest of the trail piece is going to require us to coordinate with PennDOT, and so that schedule won't be known until we actually go to them with some design ideas and see their willingness to accept what we're proposing. And there's usually some back and forth. That's very common. But if I can just speak about Bridge Park, and assuming that we get the funding to do construction and that we actually go all the way to where it ends on the other side. So we're thinking about taking that bike trail all the way over to the other side. That's going to be somewhere on the order of a 2-year construction program, maybe 2.5. There's going to be structural stabilization that needs to be done. And then the deck cantilevering that needs to be done, and it is out over a river. So, there are some challenges associated with that. But it's certainly not impossible to do. So that would be our best guess at this point in time. But, making certain you have contractors that have capacity to deliver is important. And making certain you've got at least 2 or 3 contractors bidding that have capacity to deliver so that you can get competitive pricing. Yes. So another piece of this U.S. Department of Transportation RAISE grant criteria for your project being selected is making certain that we focus our efforts on including minority business enterprises in the delivery of the project. And so we have a board at the front that actually speaks to that, and there's a contact person on that board. So if you have a business that could provide support services for this project, and I'm assuming that if you do, what services you could offer. And that could be consulting services, for instance, like assisting with public engagement and public outreach. We oftentimes will use a local firm to do that because a local firm is going to be more plugged into the community and be able to reach out through social media channels in order to get that kind of feedback that we're looking for. We oftentimes use a local surveyor to get surveying work done. We're going to need to have an engineering assessment of the bridge. And so we are looking to partner with local firms to deliver this project. And please take a look at that board on the way out if you have any interest in being involved. And that includes contractors that might have an interest in being involved in the construction piece.
Any other questions?
I have a big enough mouth. I'm sure I didn't need this. My question is, as with other projects in the county, we've run into overages. Who would cover that if we did go over budget of the however many, you said 25 million or up to. So if we did end up having, maybe $1 million over, would that come out of the county or where would that be funded? Because this does seem like an intensive project.
So this will be a publicly bid project, and the contractors will be bound to their bids. And so, again, it's important to make certain you have contractors that have a capacity to do the project, they understand the scope of the work, and they're not in over their heads. So that's part of our job to assist you in making certain that we have bidding specifications that make certain we have qualified contractors in the bidding pool and that we disqualify those contractors that aren't qualified. Yeah.
Any other questions? Mr. Abramowitz?
Are there contractors? Sorry. Are there contractors out there? Like if you do these projects, you're doing one in Indiana now. Are there contractors out there that specialize in this type of work? Are they, they might be somewhere else. They might be 1,000 miles away. But are there people that do this?
Yeah, you have contractors that build high-rise buildings, and your structural steel work is going to be very similar. It just happens to be done over a river. Anybody else? Well, we're going to, yes? Thank you. You are welcome. We're going to hang around up here for a little bit longer if you want to come up and ask any more questions. Thank you so much for coming. Kudos to Connellsville for showing up tonight.
Seriously, thank you.